Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Valentine's Day is supposed to be about love, but in 2007, in a quiet California coastal town, it marked the beginning of a terrifying murder mystery for one family. Daughter was found dead after a welfare check by her worried parents. What unfolded next was a crime so complex, it would take years and new DNA technology to uncover the truth. This is the case of Jodine Serrin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of Stop Who Does That? I'm Jackie.
And I'm Jenna.
And we hope everyone is having a great week. I just got back from a second grade Valentine's party, Jenna, and I'm very exhausted. So that was the highlight of my week, as well as my birthday. So thank you, everyone, for the birthday wishes. Still did not hear from anyone in Australia, but eventually we'll get there. How about you, Jenna?
I remembered those Valentine parties very well. I'm thankful to not have to do the box and Valentine's anymore because my kids are a little bit older. And I'm glad you had a good birthday week, Jackie. Yeah, and we're just trucking along here through the week and doing all the fun Valentine's activities and long President's Day weekend ahead of us, which is always fun. So we're gearing up for that. We also want to take a moment, as we have been doing, to share our special announcement of participating in the Beyond the Crime conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico on April 10th and 11th. We are beyond thrilled for the opportunity, and we'll be doing a live podcast there, and we'll be just kind of talking to listeners. And if you live in that area or feel like taking a quick trip out to New Mexico, we would love to meet you. We do have a code for discount on passes. Is beyond-stop. That is the code, and we have everything posted on our website for you to check out. Just a reminder to also, if you have a moment of time, to please give us a review on Apple Podcast. We would really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. So thank you.
Just wanted to add that we have put in some orders for merchandise that we will be selling/giving out at the Beyond the Crime Festival. So if there's any left over, we would love to send them to whoever fills out an Apple Podcast review. Jenna?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so much merch, and it's going to be so fun. And whatever we have left over, we're definitely going to be sending out. So please leave us a good review.
Yes, please. Make our week. Well, let's dive in. Let's go back in time to 2007. Jenna, that was 19 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
I cannot believe that.
I cannot.
Where does the time go? Oh
my God. I can't believe it. But here we are. On February 14th, 2007, or Valentine's Day, the quiet coastal city of Carlsbad, California, confronted a crime that would haunt investigators and the community for more than a decade. The murder of 39-year-old Jodine Elizabeth Serrin inside her own condominium. What began as a welfare check by devoted parents quickly transformed into a complex homicide investigation. A long cold case that would be brought to a final close using advances in technology. This is the case of Jodine Serrin.
Jodine Elizabeth Serrin, known as Jody to her friends and family, was born on November 21st, 1967, making her 39 years old at the time of the crime. She was born to Arthur and Lois Serrin and was one of 6 children. Jody was born in Glendale, California. She grew up in Walton Hills, Ohio, and graduated in 1986 from Bedford High School. She loved making flower arrangements, and after the family moved to Carlsbad, California, she earned a certificate in a floral design. So that's pretty cool. Jody loved animals, especially Sam, her gentle white horse, and her beloved cat, Angel. So she had just this like really good heart. She loved her pets and she loved making floral arrangements, which is kind of reminds me of Lacey Peterson
Yeah.
watching all the Martha Stewart shows. So
Like
Jody,
artsy, craftsy, very
yeah,
innocent.
very artsy, calming hobbies. Jody also enjoyed horseback riding. Obviously, she had a horse. Ice skating, biking, crafts, like we said, and kayaking, and found peace and comfort in taking long walks along the beach. So just really fulfilled life here. So many
Yeah.
hobbies, and she just loved being active. I feel like she was kind of one of those people who just didn't want to sit at home. She
Right.
had her hobbies, like she just loved to be out
Staying
and
active.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially in California where the weather is
Oh,
beautiful.
it's sunshine
So
all the
it's
time.
she definitely took advantage of being out there. Jody, known to friends and family as warm, routine-oriented, unfailingly kind, was also a highly functioning woman living with developmental disabilities. She worked, managed her day-to-day life with a cherished sense of independence and maintained a close relationship with her parents who supported that independence while checking in regularly. This is very important as the story goes on. Jodine thrived on predictability, appointments kept, calls returned, doors locked at night, and she was active in local social and support groups that offered community and structure to her life. Jody loved helping others, especially homebound senior citizens. She enjoyed volunteering at her church and the Humane Society. She was grateful for the support from the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. She was an enthusiastic walk-a-thon fundraiser for various groups each year. She treasured the time she spent with her friends at the Mariposa and the Copper Hill/Friends group. It sounds like she just had such a wonderful and meaningful life. I don't know Jody, but I feel
Yeah.
very proud of her. I mean, for 39 years old, she
Yeah.
accomplished so much and she just sounds so independent. And despite her mental disability, it seems like she was overcoming that and, having a seemingly regular life. I'd say even better than regular.
I
Like,
was gonna say, she seems like she does more and is more active than most people.
yeah, no.
More than me, I would say. Yeah. I don't even have the
Her
energy for a lot of that.
And she had a lot of friends too. And her friends describe her as earnest, trusting, somebody who took people at face value. She loved books and television dramas, and she was meticulous about keeping her living space tidy. She followed a schedule that brought her comfort. That same predictability gave those who loved her a keen sense of when something felt off. It also gave investigators later an unusually clear baseline for noticing the slightest deviation in her movements and communications around the day of her death.
Yeah, and in retrospect, it's so good that she was so meticulous about her schedule because I'm sure she enjoyed having that predictability in her life. And it's so true. That's how her parents probably noticed something was off. Investigators
Yeah.
could tell something wasn't right.
And I just want to say her parents sounded just like the most loving, kind parents you could ever ask for. They
I know.
just
And they gave her
supported.
independence.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that must have been really hard for them, but she showed responsibility and she had a job, and they probably were like, "Jody's doing it, let her do her thing, let her be independent," but I'm sure as parents, like, they were just worried constantly, about
I
her.
have, yeah, I actually have an aunt that she kind of reminds me of. Um, I would say she's developmentally disabled.
Yeah.
And she lives in a group home setting, and
Okay.
she's always kinda lived there. It reminds me of that. It's like there's always a lot of crafting going on. They have their own community
Yeah,
and
okay.
friends, and she kinda does remind me of my aunt a little bit from how she's
Yeah.
described and just how sweet and, innocent she is. But, yeah, let's talk about a little bit of what kind of street she lived on and then what led up to Valentine's Day too. Carlsbad, California in 2007 was a rapidly growing North County San Diego community known for its beaches, flower fields, and quiet master planned neighborhoods. The 1900 block of Swallow Lane sits in a residential area made up of modest condos and townhomes with plenty of residents who wave to one another, walk dogs, and notice new cars in the driveways. It was not, to most eyes, a place where strangers could move in and out at odd times without seeing someone or hearing something. Kind of makes me think of like the Nancy Guthrie case that's going on, right? Like,
Yes, that
I
type
heard
of neighborhood.
the houses were like farther apart. So, it's probably was hard for somebody to notice anything was amiss there. But we do have ring cameras nowadays, which we did not in 2007.
And it would have been helpful. We always say
Yeah,
that. And we
I
said it
know.
about Gary Redner as
I
well. That
know.
Ring doorbell would have been clutch to have.
It's crazy reading these stories from before the technology, and you're like, man, had they just had that technology.
I know.
That sense of neighborhood familiarity framed the case from the beginning. If someone came to Jodine's home, who was it and how did they go unnoticed? Valentine's Day meant a check-in from Jodine's parents. They sound so sweet.
I know. They probably brought her like a little Valentine's present too. Like I could picture them doing that.
I bet you they did. They were attentive and never controlling, and their habit of stopping by was rooted in love and reassurance rather than worry. That night, when they arrived at Jodine's condo, they encountered something unusual. I would say more than unusual.
I would say
Alarming.
shocking.
Inside the home, are you guys ready for this? They enter the home. I'm sure they had a key, of course. Called out for Jodine. Walk in the house. And there is a man in Jodine's bedroom. Accounts indicate that the parents initially believed they had interrupted a private moment. I mean, it's Valentine's Day.
It is Valentine's Day.
Maybe Jodine met someone that
Maybe she had a
was keeping
friend over.
secret. Yeah, they obviously felt like they were intruding.
She's a grown woman after all.
39 years old. The man, now here's what blows my mind is this man said that Jodine was indisposed, like being in the shower or the bathroom or something. So imagine you've just done something very heinous to someone and there's people coming into the front door. They have a key. They're walking in on you and you're so calm, cool, and collected that instead of running or attacking them, you're just like playing it off like, oh, no, I'm just a friend of hers. She's in the bathroom. That's what blows my mind, right?
To remain composed like that,
exactly.
and to have the wherewithal to that's what you're gonna say, like it's just nothing. Yeah, I know. What is
Hi, yeah, Jodine, she's just in the bathroom. So then, obviously, the parents thinking like, oh, we just walked in on something we should not have walked in on. Yeah, obviously embarrassed, they withdrew and went back out the door. But at the same time, they're having this sense that like something's not right. Because I wonder if how open Jodine was about her friends and her life, that I would imagine she would have told them. Right, Jenna?
You would think, or her parents would know that she has friends. She did have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wouldn't have been unusual that she had a friend over. I think the whole like Jody's indisposed thing was like what alarmed them.
It sounds like they backed off, they left the house for a little bit, but they were like, no, something's not right. And they re-entered the home. But when they got back inside, this strange man was gone, almost into thin air. They found Jodine in the bedroom, unresponsive. Attempts to revive her were unfortunately futile. And then as they looked around the room, it did tell a story of something violent had gone on. The room was disturbed. They called 911, which triggered a rapid response by local law enforcement and paramedics. But by the time they got there, life-saving measures were just not possible. Jodine's injuries led to fatal blunt force trauma. And the person her parents had briefly encountered, who was calm enough to speak, composed enough to leave undetected, had left behind a scene both intimate and horrific.
Can you imagine her parents having to live with this the rest of their life? They face to face saw their daughter's killer and he spoke to them.
Right, and they didn't know that anything was amiss because of how he played it off.
They must think about that every day. I mean, that's not quite often that you run into the killer like that.
But
It's
she was probably gone by then, to be honest with you.
right, yeah,
So even if they did put it
yeah.
together, and honestly, in some ways, I'm grateful that it played out the way it did because he didn't hurt them either. At least there were witnesses, you know what I mean? Like,
I I
they saw
know.
him, and he
I was
let
thinking
them
the same
live.
thing. They're freaking lucky that he didn't
Yeah,
just kill them for walking in. I mean, they're very lucky. He easily could have
yeah.
killed them.
So
Yeah,
then it's like, why Jodine? Why didn't he kill them too, except for the fact that there's 2 of them now?
true. Because well, and they saw his face too. So I mean, I feel like for a killer, that sets off alarm bells, and then they're immediately like, I got to get rid of all witnesses.
The investigation, Jenna, tell us about, you
Yes.
know, how we got to this guy.
So the police secured the condominium, they canvassed neighbors, and began the meticulous process of reconstructing the timeline. The parents' description of the encounter became the first vital thread, like we were
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah.
Detectives cataloged the room's condition, signs of a struggle, and any potential sexual component to the crime. They collected trace evidence from bedding surfaces and the entry and exit routes. They documented footwear impressions, evaluated door and window integrity, and considered whether the assailant had knowledge of the victim's routines. So they really processed the hell out of that scene. They definitely, like, did everything the good police work is what I would say. From the beginning, the case presented investigators with a paradox. It looked like a crime of opportunity, yet contained hints of deliberation. The fleeting interaction with the parents suggested a suspect who would lie convincingly and depart without panic, just like we stated. He had cool, calm, and collected, no problem lying, and then boom, he was out of there. The composure made the man memorable, but also infuriatingly anonymous. Without a name, investigators leaned hard on physical evidence. And the early theories that they had explored known acquaintance versus stranger. Did Jodine invite someone she knew over and somebody she trusted? Like we said, was it one of her many friends? Or was this a chance encounter with a stranger that she had recently met or a stranger from the neighborhood? Opportunistic attack versus planned visit. Did the assailant happen upon an open door or a familiar routine? Or had he targeted her specifically? Like, was he watching her for some time? Single offender hypothesis. The subtlety of the intruder's exit and the lack of reported accomplices pointed towards a single offender. Sexual assault motive. The crime had intimate elements, but investigators withheld particulars from the public to protect the integrity of the case because there was DNA samples left from the sexual assault.
I was gonna say, was she essayed?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that they collected all of that. They didn't release it to the public, though. Those early theories drove targeted interviews with friends, coworkers, neighbors, and any known acquaintances. Digital traces, phone records, computer activity, and travel card transactions were reviewed against the timeline. Nothing obvious cracked the case. So they just exhausted all these theories. They had a face, they had a voice, but they didn't have a name. And this man didn't match up to any of her acquaintances, friends, anybody from all those organizations she belongs to. Basically, it was going cold, and it's like they had all this evidence and eyewitnesses, but nothing was matching up.
Leaning towards maybe he was walking through the neighborhood. They had an interaction, and she's
Yeah.
just a very nice person. Maybe he asked for a glass of water or,
Yeah.
something.
And we learned at the beginning, like, about Jody, that she was very trusting and
Yeah,
naive.
I really think that it was just
Yeah.
something very benign,
Yeah.
and she invited him in, or he asked for something and she's like, "Sure, why not?" Just being nice and helpful,
Yes.
and unfortunately got taken advantage of. question is, was he casing her out, or did he just happen to be in the neighborhood and could tell from interacting with her
Yeah.
he's very trusting and he could take
Yeah.
advantage of her?
Because, like, if some stranger came up to you or I and, asked for something, I'd be like, "Hell no." Like, I probably would just walk away.
You know, it brings up a good point here is, like, as a woman, I feel like I'm too nice at times to people, and that's the thing, and we're trained to be nice because that's what being a good girl is. You're nice and sweet and kind, and we're not allowed to be rude or we're called
Yeah.
bitches and all this stuff. So, like, the only time I ever, I think, really dug deep and I was like, "No, this person needs to go," is there's a lot of people that canvass my neighborhood, and one day I was leaving to go back to work for something, and this guy comes up to me and I have a no soliciting sign on my door, but I'm like, he didn't see it. So he's trying to talk to me about, I think it was roofing or something. And immediately I'm like, something doesn't feel right about this whole conversation. And then he's like, well, I kept saying, well, I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my husband. And he just like wasn't getting it. And he's like, well, what's your phone number? So we can, something about taking my phone number down. So
Yeah.
I started making up the number, right? And
Yeah.
he's putting it in his phone and he goes, all right, well, I'm going to call the office now to verify your phone number. And that's when I was like,
Oh,
okay, I was like, you know what? You need to go. Like, that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm like, wow, I am so glad I was rude in that moment because
yeah.
that was just not okay.
Also found through my life experience that
Yeah.
sometimes when you're rude, it aggravates the person more.
And that's what I'm always afraid of is like, I walk that fine line of like, I'm
I've
not going to,
given out fake
yeah,
phone numbers.
yeah,
I've said, because you read the situation and you always have to be smart. Like
yeah.
Jody, just I think because of her developmental,
I think her social development,
yeah, like
probably that was very childlike and
yeah,
that, yeah.
yes, yes, that's exactly. You just can't be so trusting and kind. I just feel like this person may have been, like you said, watching her from the neighborhood interactions and could tell she just maybe wasn't like
Socially as developed as other people,
aware.
socially
Yeah,
aware either.
yeah,
I don't know the particulars of her developmental disability, but I mean, she could be at the same level as like a 10-year-old child, right? If you go up to them and you offer them
yeah,
candy, right? They're just trusting of an adult, right? So it could have been something similar
yeah.
there. Wow. But yeah, I'm willing to go with it was just he encountered her and took advantage of her.
Mhm.
But let's talk about how the case transpired after this, since they kind of turned all the stones here. Eventually, Jody's case did go cold, and the one smoking gun they did have was the DNA left at the crime scene. So the DNA developed in this case produced a unique male profile. Initial database searches did not return a match, which implied that the perpetrator had not been convicted of offenses that would require DNA submission or that his DNA had just not been entered into the system, which is so frustrating
Yeah.
because we encountered this with Brian Koberger, right? He had a clean record. This DNA became the golden thread, preserved, retested over time as methods improved, and requeried whenever law enforcement databases expanded or new comparison tools emerged. The case was carefully curated so that if the day came when the technology can point to a name, the biological evidence would be admissible and compelling. Around the mid 2010s, a new technology was being used to solve cases: genetic genealogy. This is where DNA is gathered from a genetic database, places like Ancestry.com, 23andMe, and they're used to triangulate family trees using shared and similar DNA. This is a very manual and labor-intensive process, but in Jody's case, it proved successful. So similar to Brian Koberger, he had no criminal history. They couldn't find him in any of the databases, but they used his DNA to run through Ancestry or 23andMe
Yeah.
and triangulated back to his dad,
Yes.
led them to him.
Yes, because when they do that, it's basically like a 99.5% match that they're related, I think. Oh.
Well, what they do is, I don't know if you've ever sent a sample in. I've done
Mhm.
it to
Mhm.
23andMe.
I've done
And
it.
I get notifications all the time. I'm related to
Yeah.
some fifth or
Yeah.
sixth cousin
Yeah.
And we
Right.
share so much DNA.
Yeah.
So what genealogists can do with that information is start trying to figure out possibilities of what grandparent you're tracked back to and then work down through there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even if you don't submit something to 23andMe
Yes.
or Ancestry.com, if somebody in your family did, they can trace your family. And
Yes.
the beauty of it is we sign release forms when we put
Yeah.
our DNA out there that it's public information. So they're not
So
really
they're
breaking.
tracing and the
Yeah.
grandparent that and they're looking for who was living in that area and maybe around the age, obviously it's not going to be an 8-year-old. So they're looking for like somebody's around a certain age living in this area and then they're like, "Oh, it's this person."
Yeah, it probably takes some time. Honestly, I would
Yeah.
love to do that as a
I
job.
know.
Like,
I
I
would
would
too.
love to have the board up and have the line, the strings to this person and this person, and then be like,
Yeah.
okay, it's got to be these possibilities, and then
Yeah, and then
from
narrow it
there,
down
yeah,
and then be like, "We got our guy."
yeah. So that's pretty much what they did. And on November 9th, 2018, so 11 years after Jodine was murdered, a suspect was announced, and it was David Marbito. Publicly identified long after the crime, Marbito was 38 years old at the time of the crime and lived a transient lifestyle for most of his adult years. Accounts portray him as someone who was a drifter, took odd jobs, and sporadically crossed paths with law enforcement without accumulating a criminal DNA footprint that would have triggered a hit in 2007. So it sounds to me like he's had run-ins, but he's never been booked and processed.
Mhm.
Fortunately, he died in 2011 by suicide years before the match to Jodine's case was ever made, and only 4 years after the crime he committed against Jodine. With Marbito deceased, there would be no arrest, interrogation, or trial. Yet the forensic linkage, crime scene DNA to his known biological profile supplied the evidentiary closure that the case had lacked. Investigators stated with confidence that he was the man in Jodine's bedroom and the person responsible for her death. For Jodine's loved ones, the official identification of the suspect was not an end, but a moment in a long story. They had lived for years with a memory that most families will never have to carry. Seeing the person who was in their daughter's bedroom in the last hour of her life. Their bravery speaks to the family's devotion to Jodine and to their community. Although the identified suspect died years before he could be brought to court, the case stands as a testament to patient, ethical, and scientifically informed police work, and to a family's enduring love. Jodi's story should be remembered not only for the violence that ended her life, for the dignity with which her community and investigators sought the truth. I am so glad, Jenna, that they never stopped re-querying that
I
DNA,
know.
that they never stopped trying to find out who did this to her.
Great police work.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, kudos to them. And I guarantee you her family was advocating very hard
Yeah.
to keep her at the forefront.
And it's just so unfair that her life was taken by this drifter, this man who had absolutely no right to do this to her. She lived a full and great life. She deserved to have so many more years of that life.
I mean, in an instant, everyone's life changed that day. Unfortunately, that day was Valentine's Day. So as we close out, just think of Jodine as you're receiving Valentine's flowers or maybe giving out Valentine's flowers. As you know, she loved to make floral arrangements, and keep her in your thoughts and prayers. I'm so glad we at least have a name and her family has closure.
Yeah. And our thoughts and prayers go to her family today and every day, especially on Valentine's Day.
All right, we'll see you guys